Hello and welcome to This Naked Chat, a podcast where six friends from different walks of life come together for honest, unscripted conversations about living alcohol-free and everything that comes with it. We all met at a live event hosted by Annie Grace of This Naked Mind in March of 2024. What started as a mastermind group with the six of us and Annie turned into some really deep friendships, filled with connection, tough conversations, and a lot of laughter. And after a year of growing and learning together, we realized that these conversations might help more than just us. So here we are, no scripts, just real talk. We are incredibly grateful to Annie and This Naked Mind for helping us get this off the ground and for the impact that her work has had on each of our lives. I am Brian, and I am joined by Kori, Agnes, Judi, Jenie, and Sammie. Let's dive in. All right, still have a hat. I don't know. And my Reader 2 glasses. So let's see what this one is today. Being around friends and family when they drink.
That's fun.
Yay. Go Agnes!
Yeah, right? Yeah. Gee, who put that in?
I do not want to talk about that today.
Okay.
Dear
right.
Lord. Okay, I'll let you guys start. Holy, that's a big one.
I think going back to the start, I think it's much different when I initially stopped drinking to today, which is, what am I don't know, 5 or 6 years in nowadays. But I think initially I avoided it completely, which led to some isolation on my part. I don't know if anyone else found that, but if my friends were going to a happy hour, I just wouldn't go anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people do that because they're trying to avoid the substance and being tempted and all of that stuff. I don't know. I think in some ways I purposely tried not to avoid it. One, because I was going to prove to myself that it wasn't as big a deal. And then also because I was going to prove to everybody else that hey, I can still, hang and whatever and be sociable and stuff. And now I mostly just find them annoying, so I don't really give a shit about being around them one way or the other. So, yeah.
It's fun. I do remember the comments too when I was around them and I wasn't drinking of being boring. So to your point there, Kori, of almost proving to them that you can still be fun is interesting because they're like, oh, you don't drink anymore, you're boring.
Yeah.
You're like, no, watch me dance on a table, for example, Agnes.
Okay, I might
Sammie,
try.
Or Sammie has recent experience too of the festival route too,
Yeah, go Sammie, tell us about it.
Okay, so, if you told me I would have done a festival without drinking, I would have thought you were crazy. Because what's the point of going if you're not going to drink? But as we learn when we actually do the experience, rather than what we think in our head is going to be true, it's completely the opposite. And I love now going to festivals and to gigs and not drinking. Because I can get myself there, I can get myself back, I can remember everything. I don't need to queue for the bar, I don't need to queue for the toilets, I don't need to worry about any of that rubbish. But it's interesting then when you watch other people around you drinking. It was my 3rd year anniversary this month, and I went to see Alanis Morissette with my sister to celebrate. And we were sat there and there was a couple of girls that were there, bottle of wine each in hand, dancing and singing away, and she went, that was us, however many years ago. And my sister still drinks, she was having a drink, and she said, oh, how does it make you feel? And I just went, so fucking grateful. I am just so grateful. I am not in that place anymore. I don't need that anymore. But I had to do it to believe it, because I didn't think that would be possible. So
did you skip a few of those festivals, Sammie? Or did you just keep going and kind of power through it?
So the first one I did alcohol-free was when I was actually on the path. So it was a couple of months after I'd started the path, and it was it was the Isle of Wight festival, which is a smaller festival than the Glastonbury one I go to, but they were back to back. So I did the Isle of Wight completely alcohol free, and my partner, bless him, didn't drink either. He just was happy not to. And it was a very interesting experience, but I loved it. It was brilliant. And then we literally came back from that, went straight to the Glastonbury, and I did the first few days of that alcohol free, and then I mindfully thought about it, I'm going to have a drink, which is what I did for the last few days. I didn't drink as much because I was it felt really weird the first time I had that first drink. I was like, okay, this now feels a bit weird. But then quickly it was comfortable again. But then what I found was, of course, as soon as I got back from that, straight down the off licence, bottle of wine, drank every day, 2 bottles of wine for about 9 days. And that was the data point which changed everything for me. That was my gold, because I felt bloody awful and so anxious and so depressed, and so after having a couple of months of not drinking, I realised, you know what, that is not worth it.
Interesting.
So
do you think, what do you think the reason was why you were in that environment and you chose to drink?
I think because at that point, even when I went into the path, I still had a belief I could moderate, even though I clearly hadn't been able to for the previous 35 years, but somehow it was going to be possible after I did the path. And I thought, well, there's only one way to find that out, and like I say, I drank less than I would have done normally at the festival, but it was back in my head.
I mean, it sounds like a perfect experiment, right? To go have a few and then realize that the pattern afterwards wasn't something that you liked, and then that's a pretty cool story that I didn't know.
It was painful. It was it was horrible, and at the time I literally can remember convincing myself to get back on the call with Coach Rena. Was the call I went on, so I didn't go on the calls again because I was so full of shame and depression, all that stuff. And I just thought, you've got to get on the call. So I did, and it was just the best thing I ever did.
Did all of you have, I know not all of us went through path of some, but I'm wondering, as you went through this, what sort of support you had in place, kind of like that? Like, were you around people, if you weren't in the path, or if you were in the path, that you could go and have that sort of support of someone who wasn't drinking? I didn't have it. Kori, you didn't either, right?
Yeah. I didn't have it either.
Because, man, it seems so important to have something like Sammie had, right?
It was massive. It's the first time I'd ever been in a community of any description, really, like that. I mean, you could say I was in the drinking community for years, but it's not real, is it? It was the first time ever I joined a group like that, and it was the difference for me. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, what I was thinking about when you said that, because you mentioned the people with wine, and I still find myself doing this, whatever it is, 5 years later sometimes. Like, the judgment I had early on of people that were drinking was really strong. And sometimes, I mentioned this in a couple episodes ago, where I'll still notice it on occasion, where I'll be like really judgmental of someone that's drinking. And I would love to be able to drop that. I think what we talked about, Judi, I think maybe you said it, is like there's something in there that's a trigger for me, right, when I notice something like that. But I think that's an interesting thing to see how much judgment there is early on when you're around your family and friends when they're drinking versus how it maybe changes over time.
Yeah, I think it's huge. So for me, when I stopped drinking, I basically wanted to prove to myself that I never had a drinking problem. So I'm not changing anything. I could be around this. That was a huge one. But it quickly went into people around me justifying why they're drinking. So their uncomfort really creeped up really fast for me. And then that made me uncomfortable because now it's like, well, you know, because you've stopped, don't make me stop. Or, you know, friends are, oh, I don't drink often, I only drink sometimes. So now everyone's justifying why they're drinking around me. And then I had the people that were curious in the sense of I could tell that they're questioning their own drinking, but they don't know how to ask. But they're just wondering, well, what did you do? How did you do it? But I think the biggest part is at first, for me, it was that stopping. Then I felt extremely isolated. I was isolating myself because now I'm the only sober person. So now I'm putting myself in these environments where I'm not a part of that. So I feel left out again. I feel all of these things. And it's like, how do I live like this? What does this mean? Do I need to change all my friend groups? What? That didn't feel comfortable because now it felt like there's more change that needs to come, and I just wasn't ready for that. But then after that, it's like watching people, then it's like I can't be around that because then I don't even want to talk to them because you could watch them as they continue getting buzzed. And then it's like, why even bother having a conversation with them? Number one, they may not remember. Number two, you start seeing them react to everything. Then all of my triggers flare up of, you know, the unpredictability of it and all of that. So then now that's not comfortable. So I couldn't figure out where my place was. And then it turned into, oh my God, that's what I look like? Holy shit. Remembering all those things, thinking, oh my God, I can't believe that I did that, that I said that shame just so came flooding in. And then the next step was, oh my God, what have I taught my kids? Now I see them drinking. Holy shit, how do I fix this? And then that panic comes in, and now it's like trying to educate them, like, no, you don't really need to drink to be social. No, you don't. Yes, I did it, but you don't need to do it. And it has just been a journey altogether. And now I'm at that point where it's like, why am I putting myself in this environment? It's like, wow, like what the hell? I am trying to fit into something that I just don't want to be a part of. So now it's figuring out that final stage, like, where are my boundaries now? What's acceptable or not for me? And how do I move forward? And that's where I'm at now. So I feel like that's sort of the final stage for me at this point anyways. But it's been a long journey. And it's going to be September will be 2 years that I haven't had a drink. But I've had full-blown social events all the time, every weekend, all the time. And I feel like it's been a lot when it comes to that. But the gift in all of that, by having all of these social events and being completely not taking myself out of it, all the triggers have flared up. So that's been the gift, because I have been able to work through so much when it comes to myself and all the triggers and understanding myself so much quicker, I feel, because I'm doing it every single week, all the time. And it's something new. Every single drinking experience has been different. Every single one, which I find is crazy how different it was. And also all the reasons that I would drink. I didn't realize that there are some people that I just don't really want to be around, and I would get drunk because then I don't hear them. So I don't care. Like it was so interesting, all the different reasons.
This episode is sponsored by The Path by This Naked Mind. It's a year-long program that combines expert guidance, daily support, and a connected community to help you take back control of your drinking so that you can wake up without regret, trust yourself again, and live a life that doesn't revolve around alcohol. Unlike the programs that focus on your behavior alone, The Path helps you eliminate the desire to drink using science-backed content, world-class coaching, and a compassionate community that really, truly gets it. So you can feel confident and in control of your relationship with alcohol without shame, without rules, and without missing out on the things that matter most. And in 2025, support is more accessible than ever before with live online coaching calls every hour on the hour from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Saturday. No matter where you are in the world or what your day looks like, support is always there, right in your back pocket. Learn more and start your path to freedom at nakedmindpath.com.
That is awesome. That is so everything you just said is so true. Like the whole, like all the different reasons that you drink. Oh my gosh. Yes. And what's funny is like you have to be sober to realize that, like, oh, I just don't like you.
Yeah. And it's even different events, like from going to a sports game, not comfortable in that environment at all. Just because that drinking seems to be very different. Because if they win, everyone's happy. If they lose, holy shit, man, watch out trying to get to that GO train. But then when you go to a concert, that's completely different because everyone's having fun. So you don't get so much of that angst of something happening, although I'm sure everything happens. But it is so different. So being in a stadium of 50,000 people for a concert, I was okay in, but being in a stadium of, I don't even know how many people come to hockey games, but whatever that number is, which is less than 50,000, I wasn't okay with. So you learn so much. But then that's how boundaries come.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I went to a rugby match, because I love rugby, and it was the first one I did for my 50th alcohol-free, and the thing I noticed was the row in front were getting, more and more intoxicated, and then they went off at halftime to get drinks, and they basically didn't come back. And I thought, the tickets cost a lot of money, and all I kept thinking was, what a waste of money. But it was great because it meant I had a good view, so I was grateful.
There, you brought a couple there, but one of them that stood out there at the end of and we'll go back to this as this triggers of we think when we give up alcohol, it's going to be easy. And I'm noticing right now in my life, what am I in? My 5th year that I haven't drank, that this is about as hard as it's gotten for me in terms of triggers and finally getting to a point where I'm able to sit with things and learning about emotions and dealing with them. It's 5 years later. Like, I definitely think it was life-changing for me back then, but I do think maybe people think it's like this magical pill, but it's almost like the first stop, right? Like I was using it to deal with all of these, and here I am 5 years later still trying to work through all of these sort of feelings. And they like you said, it's trigger after trigger. And it's just been a really interesting journey here the past, especially year for me.
I think the universal truth for anybody who drinks a lot or uses any drug, as a medication, right, as a tool, is that we never had a healthy relationship with our emotions, right? We never learned that. And so that's just across the board, and probably the sooner that you accept that as a drinker or after you've quit drinking, like you're just giving yourself a step ahead that it's not your fault. You never got the tools, and that's why you were using this drug. So, the fact that, this is the first step, you were never going to cure this until you quit using it, because you just keep using that as a way to numb and a way to not deal. I mean, you're just so immature. I mean, that's the only way, and that's not a bad
Kori.
thing, right? It's not a bad thing. Like,
I know.
It's just we didn't get the chance, so it just is.
What were you going to say there, Judi?
Well, I was actually, Kori mimics what I was going to say. That just because we're still having triggers is not at all a bad thing. It's like, yay, welcome to your life. Right. The good news is that you have new tools in your toolbox to manage the emotions, as opposed to like, oh, here's a JD, or here's this, or here's that. This is the tool I have to manage this emotion. Well, the good news is you don't use that tool anymore, because that's really what it is a tool, right? You're numbing yourself out, and then you get addicted and all that other stuff goes on. But so the fact that you're having these triggers and you're not drinking, bravo, celebrate that. Every time you have a trigger and you go, oh, awesome, I didn't drink for it, just says, look at that, look at me. I think. I mean, it's a celebration in and of itself.
And the fact that you actually noticed that it was a trigger, because
sure.
I guarantee for how many years I did not.
Right.
It was just my instinct to just just stay numb. Just stay numb. Just stay as divorced as you can from your feelings in whatever, method. And so, the fact that you even noticed it, that's a huge step.
And I think we talked about this maybe on the last episode, but like one of the biggest triggers for me now, and this is judgment too, but is noticing in people that I care about that are doing the same patterns that I was doing, of like thinking that, gosh, I think you're maybe doing this because there's something that you need to deal with, Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, you're projecting.
Yeah. I know.
Straight up.
And that's so, exactly.
Straight up.
That's
you're
the
projecting.
hardest one for me is like, I'm like, ugh.
Straight up.
Yep.
You're doing stuff that I would have done, and you're drinking, and that's how I would have managed it, so cut it out.
I know.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, and people got to grow to it just like you did. That's how we let go of judgment of others' behaviors.
How do you do it?
Huh?
How'd you say I do it?
You don't.
Yeah.
But how you could do it.
Yeah.
How you could do it, right, is just recognize that, I'm projecting.
Yeah.
And just back off. Because you got to allow people the journey. Yeah, we can do all we can as coaches and say, whoa, I'm here if you want, but there's not a dang thing we can do for anybody if they don't want it.
Yeah.
I do think just like for me, like you said, Agnes, earlier about your kids, and I'm aware my kids saw me drinking for years, and I don't preach to them about their drinking or anything like that, but I am aware that they've observed me now as a non-drinker for 3 years and have seen the journey I've done, and they are aware of that, and I do think it does influence.
I would be curious, Jenie and Sammie, what that whole not projecting and not what the solution is, if not related to alcohol. I'm saying, like, when you see people in other healthcare settings and you're like, you have this because you have done this to yourself. Why do you keep doing this? And you keep seeing them over and over. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you separate yourself?
Well, that would be the $1 million question every day of the week, right? And I don't know. I think it's actually a bit easier for me to separate myself from some of that, especially as it relates to alcohol. And the challenges I always ran into, especially living in such a small town, is I ran the dialysis unit here, so I would see patients at the grocery store, and I would see what they were buying to eat. Most of the time, forbidden food, because when you're on dialysis, there's a shit ton of stuff you can't really be putting in your mouth. And it that was always challenging, to just greet them with love and not say a word. Because as Judi says, it is their journey, their body, their choice, not mine. But this environment that I live in now did put that to the test a little bit. And along these lines, I just had an interaction on Saturday. It was by text. A friend of mine had been here in town doing a book signing and reading, and then anyway, it doesn't matter. I was trying to intercept her because we missed each other, and she was at a bar listening to music, and she said, you could just come down and meet me here, and I couldn't make that work. We have a mutual friend who was playing in the band, and he has struggled with alcohol. And in fact, both he and she were very instrumental in helping me in 2018 when I was a mess. They both were very, very helpful to me. And Penny was texting me saying, well, Jonathan's here playing and he's on his third scotch and water. And I'm thinking I should pull him aside. And I'm like, please don't. This is his journey, not yours. And she got pretty pissed at me. And and to the point where she actually called me and said, I can't believe you said that. And I said, well, I mean, first of all, you're in a public place, not cool. But fundamentally, it's his journey, not yours. And I've been thinking about this all weekend because, as I say, he was very instrumental for me, but not in that way. And I don't know. So that was an interesting bit of judgment on my part, not on the fact that Jonathan is drinking again, but on how my friend Penny wanted to manage him. And so that's been interesting. The one thing I did want to ask is if you all have had a different sort of interaction with family members that are drinking versus friends that are drinking or drunk around you, because those two categories are very, very different for me in terms of what my response is to it. And back in the day when my now dead brother was alive, anytime I would go visit, and it was usually over the holidays, he was sloppy drunk always when I was there. And that was a big trigger for me, not making me want to drink, just like, dude, really? Can you just be present with me for a couple hours? We don't see each other very much, yada, yada. In a much different way, it triggered me than if I'm with friends and they're all drinking, possibly getting annoying, and I don't want to be around that. It's just a different kind of response I had, and I wonder if you all have noticed distinctions.
I think, Jenny, that's really a good observation. But I also, to even refine that more, I also, within the family, depending if it's adult, like adults, my age, my generation, versus the next generation down, when I watch those guys go through what I did, and I had to really pull back because I could get a little bit in their face a little. And even now, when, let's go smoke some weed or something, I have to really just pull back and say, you know what? They're not doing as bad as I did at their age, so I don't have to kill them yet. Right? I mean, and I think about how people reacted to me and who bothered me, who maybe kept me stuck in my use versus those who didn't keep me stuck. And I think about that. And I think about those who really focused on relationship with me, despite my ill behaviors. And it's those people who were most helpful to me, even though it might have been my auntie who taught me to drink scotch, who drank right along with me. But there was something in that relationship that helped me to recognize that, you know what, I can be more than this. And I think, I mean, with friends, we don't have that. For me, I may have that feeling of responsibility, if you will, but I think blood is thicker than water, obviously. And I think because we're invested emotionally in a way different way with family members, like you with your brother, for sure, right? I think it's intriguing, the levels of people who we bring in our circle and who layers out. And I don't know. It's crazy to really chew on it a bit.
Well, and I think it's interesting also that you're talking about your, friend that's been struggling and the other friend that wanted to say something to them. I think there's, whether it's family or friends, I think there's a difference in like you were saying, trying to manage them and, sort of exert some kind of control versus, certainly not after 3 scotches. Why would you engage anybody at that point? But when they are sober, in the next day, just reaching out and saying, "Hey man, how are you doing?" I think part of relapse, quote unquote, is about, I think some of it's like a feeling of like, well, it doesn't matter anyway. No, like there's a disconnection that happens, I think, for people. And so sometimes just letting them know, hey, you're seen, that can be helpful, not just in the drinking. Obviously the drinking is a symptom of this other thing, of this feeling of disconnection, not knowing how to manage our emotions. And so if you just say, hey, without the judgment, without the management, then it's opening an avenue. It's an allowing. It's the everything Judi was saying, that, hey, you're a valuable human being, whether you say that out loud or not. It's just this like, hey, I see you,
Yeah. Let's we're out of time. Let's go around. What are our takeaways from this? Let's see. Topic of being around friends and family when they drink.
So I'll start off. I think that for me, it's just there's different stages of it, like there is in drinking. It's, you got to remember, how many years have you actually been numbing yourself? How many years have you been drinking? Well, don't think that when you stop drinking, everything's going to go away and it's going to be all roses. It's going to take time. It's going to take years, months, whatever it is. And it's okay. It's a part of the journey. So just be patient with yourself.
To jump onto Agnes's patience, be patient with yourself and be patient with others. I mean, because good Lord, I can't even imagine the people in my sphere when I was imbibing. I don't know how they tolerated me for a second, but I'm okay with that now because I've done the work. But patience is key.
For me, I just have such gratitude that I'm not in that place anymore. And that's it. I have complete compassion for people that are still doing it, because I was there for a long, long time, and I just try and be available, but I don't have a judgment about it, because it can happen to anyone, anytime.
That's mine too, is just gratitude that I'm not there any longer, and really grateful that I am where I am.
That's a good one. I think mine is still that it's interesting for me that I'm still projecting on some of my friends who I see following in my patterns. And I think what Kori said hits on this more, that I think the approach that I need to take is more when I have someone tell me that, they just see me and they're here for me, about almost general, not specifically, hey, I saw you drinking yesterday on the golf course, if you want to talk about it, but just, knowing that you're there for them. I think a lot of people, including myself, don't necessarily have that or hear that enough.
Compassion for those people, and also respecting yourself, like you don't have to put yourself in those situations. You don't have anything to prove to anybody. You do what's right for you in those moments. if you are just triggered all around, you can't stand it and you're in the environment, get the hell out of there, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing, there's no pressure one way or the other for you to be, for you to perform, for you to anything. You get to just be and be happy that you've taken this step for yourself.
I would just add to that, though, that as a nurse, if I see somebody that's really, really drunk and in trouble, I can't just go, I think I'll walk away now.
No, I do think
That's a good point, Sammie.
But to jump on that as a fellow human being, I certainly want to make sure that people are safe.
Yeah.
I mean, that absolutely.
And that's one thing I did notice. That first festival I did alcohol free, as we were going back to our tent, there was a group of young girls going in to the festival, and one of them couldn't stand up. They're holding her eyes are rolling in her head, and they're going back in, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's not safe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If something we said resonated, made you laugh, or made you think, we'd love it if you share it with someone who might need it too. And if you're curious about going alcohol-free or just ready to feel more connected to yourself, check out This Naked Mind. Annie's work brought us all together, and we're so grateful for the impact it's had. On that note, a big thank you to Annie Grace and This Naked Mind for making this podcast possible. We'll see you next time on This Naked Chat.